When 26-year-old Anders began quarantine last week after contracting COVID, the last thing he expected was a new roommate.
At 5 a.m. I woke up and someone was coming into my room. And I said, no, this is a mistake. You have the wrong room. Like, you can't come in here. This is, we're doing quarantine. Like, this is not how it works. And he was like, no, I have this room. They're doing 2 people to a room now.
In recent weeks, as Taiwan's government has sought to move away from its COVID-0 stance, Taiwan has seen a surge in COVID cases. This led to strangers in quarantine having to share a single hotel room. But Anders, speaking from the hotel suite bathroom, said the most frustrating part was not even being told to expect company.
No one had informed me. I looked on my phone on the line app from the hotel staff and from the nurses they have assigned to this hotel. There was no notification.
25-year-old Bevan also began isolating with a stranger late last week after testing positive.
The room was pretty tiny, and I would say the whole space was less than 15 square feet, and the bed-to-bed size was about 70 centimeters apart to each other.
This week, the government announced mild or asymptomatic cases could isolate at home. But this doesn't apply to Anders and Bevan. They'll need to remain quarantined in the hotel for a maximum of 10 days. They both say the government has poorly communicated the quarantine process and policy shifts.
Every time that I have been called on the phone, it's having to repeat a litany of the same basic information, of what is the phone number we can contact you at? What is what is your address? And so it gives me the impression, at least, that there's no communication through different bureaus or branches or anything.
Most of the time, they didn't pick up the phone call, or they would just say, oh, maybe you should ask for a different person for helping your situation, to help your situation. I was pretty disappointing. It's kind of devastating of I don't know who I can actually talk to.
TaiwanPlus reached out to Taiwan's health ministry for comment on the stories of Anders and Bevan, but has not yet received a response. Now the government has obviously changed the policy, so people who are diagnosed with COVID can now quarantine at home. How do you feel that, if you were diagnosed maybe 4 or 5 days later, you would be able to go through this process at home?
I think that the administrative or the Kafka-esque kind of world that you get thrust into as soon as you report yourself as positive, I don't know that the trouble that brings is worth any benefit that you get from these services.
Regret over reporting a positive test result is a sentiment shared by Bevan, even though he's been transferred to a room with his real-world flatmate, who has also just tested positive for COVID.
It kind of made me wonder if I haven't report anything myself, I could have just quarantined at home and none of this would happen. I don't have to go through any of this. I was thinking I was being responsible and I was self-report, trying to do the right thing, but somehow this really felt like a punishment to me.
As Taiwan moves away from its COVID-0 strategy, health officials are expecting cases to rise rapidly in the coming weeks. But for Anders, trust in the government's handling has already been damaged.
I think that this experience has really kind of destroyed my faith in the efficiency and the efficacy of the Taiwanese government to manage this.
Until their quarantine is up, it's not just COVID they're facing, but also a struggle for personal space. Kris and James Chater for TaiwanPlus.